The town of Harmony Creek, Ohio, was a master of deceptive tranquility. It presented a postcard-perfect life, a world painted in soft pastels of picket fences, manicured lawns, and the gentle murmur of neighborly gossip. Sophia, a creature of habit and quiet observation, was woven into this serene tapestry. Her days followed a comfortable, predictable rhythm, a loop she both cherished and felt subtly trapped by. Her mornings began at the Daily Grind, a coffee shop that smelled of roasted beans, aging paper, and the sweet melancholy of rain-soaked earth. She would claim her usual corner booth, the vinyl seat worn smooth from years of dreamers and thinkers. With a steaming latte warming her hands, she would open her leather-bound sketchbook. She wasn't an artist of landscapes or portraits, but of forgotten things, the intricate pattern of rust on an abandoned bicycle, the ghostly outline of a demolished building, the weary lines on a stranger's face glimpsed for a fleeting moment. She drew the past, the things that whispered stories no one else seemed to hear. One particularly grim Tuesday afternoon, the sky wept a relentless, gray torrent. The rain drummed a somber beat on the roof of her small cottage, a sound that usually lulled her into a creative trance. But today, it felt oppressive, echoing the strange restlessness that had taken root in her soul. Pulling on her raincoat, she made the short, damp walk to the end of her driveway. The cold, metallic clank of the mailbox door opening was a familiar punctuation to her day. She sifted through the usual collection of junk mail and bills, a mundane handful of modern life. But then her fingers brushed against something different. It was an envelope, thick and heavy, the color of old ivory. It felt ancient, the parchment-like paper slightly brittle at the edges. There was no stamp, no postmark, no return address. There was only her name, Sophia, inscribed on the front in elegant, looping cursive. The ink was a faded sepia, as if written a century ago, and the script itself seemed to hum with a strange, magnetic energy. Back inside, she dripped onto the welcome mat, her heart performing a nervous, uneven rhythm against her ribs. She carefully slit the envelope open with a kitchen knife, her hands trembling slightly. The paper inside was just as old, and it carried a faint, almost imperceptible scent of lavender and dust. The message was brief, the same hypnotic cursive spelling out words that made the air in the room feel thin and cold. Meet me at the old Blackwood train station at midnight. I have something to tell you that will change your life forever. A shiver, completely unrelated to the cold, traced a path down her spine. The Blackwood station. It had been derelict for 50 years, a skeletal ruin on the edge of town that sensible people avoided. It was a place of ghost stories and teenage dares, not midnight appointments. Her rational mind screamed that it was a prank, a cruel and elaborate joke. Who would do this? Why? But as the hours ticked by, another voice, a deeper and more ancient instinct, began to whisper. It was the same part of her that was drawn to forgotten things, the part that felt a profound connection to the past she sketched. This feeling wasn't logical. It was a pull, a certainty that resonated in her very bones. The fear was a cold, hard knot in her stomach, but beneath it, a spark of wild, thrilling excitement ignited. For the first time in years, the predictable loop of her life had been broken. A door had appeared where there was once only a wall. By 11:45 p.m., the internal battle was over. Dressed in dark jeans and her warmest jacket, Sophia was behind the wheel of her car, the windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the persistent rain. She parked a block away from the station, the final stretch of the journey of pilgrimage she had to make on foot. The station was even more haunting than the story suggested. It loomed out of the darkness, a skeletal silhouette against the bruised purple sky. A single, naked bulb sputtered atop a rusted pole, casting a weak, sickly halo of light on the cracked platform. The rest was consumed by shadows. The wind howled through the broken windows of the main building, a mournful, lonely sound. Every creak of the rusted station sign, every drip of water from the dilapidated awning, amplified the terrifying silence. She stood under the flickering lamp, a lone figure in a sea of darkness, feeling impossibly small. Doubt crashed over her in a freezing wave. This was insane. She was about to turn and run when a new sound cut through the wind, the crunch of gravel under heavy boots. From the deepest shadows at the far end of the platform, a figure emerged. It was a tall man, his form obscured by a long, dark trench coat and the low brim of a fedora. His face was a canvas of shadows, impossible to read. He walked with a steady, unhurried pace, his presence commanding the space around him. He didn't seem menacing, but he radiated an aura of immense gravity, of history and secrets. He stopped a few feet from her. The faint light caught the silver at his temples and the intensity in his eyes, which seemed to hold the wisdom and sorrow of ages. "You came," he whispered, his voice a low, raspy timbre, like old leather and smoke. "I knew your curiosity would conquer your fear." Sophia couldn't find her voice. She could only nod, her throat tight. He reached into his coat and produced a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was made of a dark wood, almost black, and etched with spiraling patterns and symbols she had never seen before. He held it out to her. His hands were weathered but steady. "It's time you know the truth," he said, his voice barely audible above the storm. "The truth about your family, about who you really are." Her fingers closed around the box. It was cool to the touch and heavier than it looked, humming with the same strange energy as the letter. She looked from the box to the man's shadowed face, a thousand questions swirling in her mind. But he simply gave a slow, solemn nod, turned, and walked back into the darkness from which he came, melting into the rain and night as if he were never there. Sophia was alone again, the box a heavy, tangible piece of a new reality in her hands. With a deep breath that did little to calm the frantic bird in her chest, she lifted the small, brass latch. It opened with a soft, definitive click, and as she looked inside, the world she knew, the quiet, safe, predictable world of Harmony Creek, simply ceased to exist.